Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today it is time to tackle the September Scrawler Challenge from our good friends at ScrawlrBox. We've been provided with a beautiful set of pastel coloured Posca pens and also some very interesting paper from Art Gecko. A lot of you commented on whether or not they should be trying the paper. I highly recommend it. As I mentioned in the last video as well, I do have a black paper sketchbook from Art Gecko and the paper's great, but the actual sketchbook itself is very tactile. It's got a lovely cover on it and the inside cover feels, well, I'm assuming it's supposed to feel like gecko skin. It's very knobbly bobbly. I like tactile things. The question that was thrown up about the paper was, would there be any pilling? I didn't scrub hard enough at the paper in the unboxing to find that out, but we shall certainly look at that as we go through the motions today. I have a confession to make also. This video goes live on Thursday. I am filming this on Wednesday and I have done no preparation, so we really are going to go start to finish in terms of process and creating an artwork, and as usual I will let you see all my brain farts and the process that I go through as I do it. The last thing that was thrown up in the unboxing video was this issue around shipping. Now ScrawlrBox have kept their cards very tight to their chest when it comes to things like this, and I noticed that a lot of you are quite annoyed that you received a shipping confirmation and it was over a week later that you got your box. I'm assuming that applies to people that stay in the UK because apparently our box delivery times is supposed to be 2 to 3 days. I don't know what ScrawlrBox are doing. Someone mentioned a customs sticker on their box, which tells me that they are shipping from elsewhere. They may be experimenting with trying to get people's boxes to arrive at the same time regardless of whereabouts in the world they live. That is only speculation, I don't know. As far as the website goes, they have not changed any information on their website, so unfortunately I cannot offer you any more information than that. For me personally, I have no objections to however long shipping takes for a box. For me, I just like to be told accurate information, and as it stands, ScrawlrBox are not providing people in the UK with accurate shipping information. So I'm hoping that this is an experimental phase for them and they're going to sort it out and update their website, but we can only speculate, as I said, at this moment. So if you did have to wait over a week for your box and you're in the UK, you're not alone. There's lots of people down in the comments of the last video that said the same thing. Alright guys, we are ready to rock and roll. I'm quite jacked up for this today because I haven't even given this any thought other than the species of my character. So this is going to be interesting. So let's get fired to top down view. And of course, as always, we can get going. So I have here my trusty sketchbook and also my selection of supplies for our Scrawler Challenge. One of the things I want to look at just before we get started is the subject of pilling on the paper. Now I've had quite a close look at these samples that I used in the last video and there doesn't seem to be much in the way of what has pulled up the paper. But what I want to do is just put a few subsequent layers over just to see if it is going to affect the integrity of the paper. So I'm just going to go back over now, bearing in mind on this lilac square there is actually another layer of paint down there. But honestly and truthfully, unless you're going to scrub away at the same spot, now if I just do an example here, if you press quite hard and go back and forth, there may be a potential for pilling, but really, as a technique in itself, if you're going to use Posca pens on paper, then you should be using quite a light hand anyway. There's no need to be pressing down too hard. It's more about coverage rather than intensity because obviously it is paint. Now I can see there, having scrubbed away, that there is indeed some pulling up of the paper, but it is very, very slight. So I'll leave that to dry and we'll come back to that in just a second. The other thing I wanted to talk about is something that I do in my sketchbook when I'm trying to figure out ideas and things. Quite often I will put the colours down of the supplies that I've got. So you can see here, I've taken the 5M markers in the 3 colours and I've just put little colour swatches at the top of my page. Now straight away, the paper in my sketchbook doesn't really like this very much. It has warped the paper slightly and the paper is bobbled, it has pilled. What I like to do in this circumstance, if it's something that is not a traditional supply, is to find a match in coloured pencil. I primarily work in coloured pencil and my sketchbooks tend to be of that type of texture of paper. Not only are you going to be kinder to your sketchbook paper, but you're also being kinder to the nibs on these pens. If these nibs consistently have to go over rough paper and that's all that you use them for, it starts to destroy the fibres in the nib, and what happens then is that the nib starts to split, and it can ruin them quite quickly. Now, you can get replacement nibs, but just in order to look after them better, it's not in your interests to be scrubbing these about over textured paper. So all I have done is I've taken my swatch book here. Now, this holds every pencil that I own, every coloured pencil, every brand, and it's something that I use a lot to refer back to, not just for adult colouring, contrary to popular belief. So in this circumstance, what I've done is I've tried to match up the colours on the Posca pens with a suitable pencil alternative. And what that's going to let me do is when I get to a sketch that I like and something that I decide I might carry forward into the final piece, I can plan where my colours are going, and I can also work out shadows and how intense or how pale I want areas to be. So for the purposes of this, I've had to dig through my coloured pencils. So I've got two Prismacolor pencils here, and the first one is Lilac. So if I just pop that down there, you can see the colour. It's not a perfect match. It's never going to be a perfect match, but it's quite close. And I've just done the same for the other two as well. So I've also got Prismacolor Light Aqua. And in the Arteza set, I have picked out Salmon Pink. Now the Salmon Pink, I think it's called Coral Pink in the Posca pens. Yeah, Coral Pink. That was the colour that I had most difficulty finding a match for, but they're pretty close. So for the purposes of sketching, this is a really nice, easy way for me to sort of plan things out, see where I want my colours to go down, without, number one, wasting paint, which is a lot more expensive, and also preventing any damage to the nibs of my Posca pen. So I'll pop those up there just now. There's very slight pilling here on this turquoise part. Maybe if I tilt it, you'll be able to see a bit better. And that's where I scrubbed away with a single layer. If I go over to this lilac part, there isn't anything showing, and that is 2 layers of Posca. So I'm just going to go for it again. I might even go in a different colour just to be fancy. Just make sure that it's dry enough to do that. Back over it a wee bit. Okay, and we'll let that dry and see what happens. Right, so having a wee think about our Scrawler Challenge prompt, which is character creation. This is one of these prompts that I personally find is a bit too open-ended. Sometimes you can struggle to think of a subject matter for these challenges. The problem I have with this one is I've got too many choices. It's not narrow enough for me. But I was sitting in my sunroom enjoying my very rural view, which is mostly fields, and I noticed a movement out of the corner of my eye, and I realised quite soon that that movement was in fact a rabbit, and it was a tiny little baby rabbit. And then I noticed some more movement, and then some more movement, and before I knew where I was looking, there was half a dozen baby rabbits bouncing about in my garden, and just generally being small and fearful, as rabbits tend to be. So I've decided that my character is indeed going to be a rabbit. The first thing I have to decide on then is thinking about the style of the drawing. Posca tends to lend itself more towards an illustrative style, or like a cartoon style, similar to what we can see here from our featured artist. And the more I look at this, the more I love it. I love the fact that the unicorn is surfing on a Posca pen. Generally, I tend to go for a bit more of a realistic feel. So that's 2 of the things I kind of wanted to explore just in my thumbnails, and thumbnailing quite important. So I'm using the pencil that's been provided in the box, which is the Staedtler Mars Lumograph Black Pencil, and this is a 2B, which is a grade that I quite like because it's a wee bit soft and you can have a bit of smudgy if that's what you want, but we won't necessarily be doing that on our super smooth paper. Thinking about a more sort of cartoony design, even if we just think about a basic rabbit, it's going to be pretty cute. He's going to have little ears, some really big cartoony eyes, and then maybe like a weeny little nose. Maybe he's a slightly obese rabbit, I don't know. Or we could go down the more sort of traditional route and have a sort of more realistic looking rabbit. But we can try and see. So the first thing that I know about this rabbit is he's going to be quite shy. Maybe he's a socially awkward rabbit. Maybe he's painfully shy and he's got no friends, and he likes to hide behind things. So let's try and think about that a little bit. I find this quite difficult because, I don't know, I'm just not used to drawing in a more sort of cartoony style. But maybe my rabbit's got a top hat on. Don't ask me why not? I would imagine that it would be a much more flamboyant animal or character that would wear a top hat. And every time I try and draw something like this, I think I'm just going to end up like back at Bugs Bunny. He is obviously one of the more iconic rabbits that we know of. Yeah, he definitely doesn't look shy though, does he? Right, okay, no. Maybe I'm thinking... No, because I want this character to be cute. I want it to be cute. So perhaps this is the wrong avenue. If I were a shy rabbit, what kind of hat would I wear? I'd probably wear a beanie, if I'm honest. A little knitted berry or something like that. Something that you can hide under a wee bit. Oh, I know, it's going to be a lop. Great, big, massive, loppy ears like this. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Or maybe he's a fluffy lop. I'm pretty sure you get fluffy lops. I do think I'm going to have to go for a slightly more realistic style because, as I say, I think I'm just going to end up back at something that looks like a really bad Bugs Bunny. You can give him some slightly oversized eyes. I'm going to do away with the teeth. I don't like the teeth. I want to try and avoid that face on angle as well because I just don't think it's a very flattering shape for rabbits. Like, I don't know. It's very difficult to get their eyes right in that sort of situation, whereas if you kind of draw them side on, you've got a much better viewpoint of them. So maybe only one eye, maybe he's got a little stripe up the middle or something here. Maybe he's got eyelashes. Yeah. See, instantly cuter with eyelashes, absolutely. Maybe his little beanie hat will show up better as well if he's more sort of side on. Yeah, I like this rabbit better already. I don't know why I'm fixated on this. Yes, I think something like that's definitely more my bag than this sort of cartoon style. But it's figuring out how I'm going to work in the Posca into something like this. See, I've got a feeling at this angle this should be up around here somewhere. Maybe he's got a really fluffy little tail as well. Okay, so maybe this is the kind of thing I want to be working on. I kind of want him to be hiding behind something, but I've just not really decided what, and I really need to work on the shape of this face. Yeah, okay, I think I'm going to go more for this kind of thing. I think that's a bit more sensible. I'm just wondering what it would look like if I drew him square on, because I was thinking maybe we could have him, like, maybe he's hiding behind a great big leaf or something, and he's trying to hide behind it, or maybe like kids do, and they think they're hiding, but they're like bums sticking out, and just because they can't see you, they think that you can't see them. That would be hilarious. The ear on this side could maybe come down, and it would be like lying on top of one of the leaves or something like that. See, the problem with doing a front-on view is that you see so little of their eyes because they're on like the side of their heads. Yeah, maybe he's still wearing his little hat. Yeah, and I see when drawing that, I just feel as if I'm like trying to hide the fact that I can't draw a rabbit, so I'm not really too keen on that either. I'm gonna have to like Google what the top of a rabbit's head looks like when they're a lop. I think they're pretty straight across, and I think their ears just kind of like stick out from the side like here, but I just want to double check. Okay, they're not completely square, but they're pretty rounded. They come up and like over like this, and they kind of join back down in behind there, and the ears come out slightly further up than the eyes, which makes sense because if they had straight up and down ears, then obviously the ears come out of the same location. See, now it's things like this that even though you're not familiar with, when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. I do think I want this part from here to here to be a little bit shorter as well, so that's something that I'll just kind of like tuck away in my memory. And he's going to have some whiskers as well. He just looks a bit cheesed off, doesn't he? Okay, I'm still not up for this top hat idea. But what I've decided is that he's maybe not a shy bunny, but maybe he's embarrassed about his unruly hair, and that's why he wears a hat. I'm thinking maybe we could give him one of those little baker boy hats. You know, they kind of come in like this, and then they've got a band. Maybe his is going to sit slightly off to the side, which I don't know is whether that's cool or unfortunate, or maybe a combination of the two. This is the only thing about this pencil. I'm starting to get a really dark black mark down my hand. And obviously it's just because of the carbon in the pencil, but it's also starting to smudge what's going on here. Yeah, I'm kind of liking this one better. So aside from the length of the face between the eye and I suppose you could call them the cheeks, then I think we're definitely along the right lines. In terms of colour, I think what I would like to do is, I think I would like to use the salmon colour for the bulk of the, you know, to like have that as like his main body colour, and there's usually an area around the eye as well that's a lot paler. Yeah, because we've got white Posca as well. So I think maybe what I would do is I would have the bulk of him pink, make that his main colour, and then have some white. And then I could use purple for like the shadow areas and get some like sort of stylised hatching in, and maybe do his whiskers in purple. We've got black for the eyes, and then that would leave us this lovely turquoise colour for his hat. And again, we can use one of the other colours as like a, you know, as the contrast colour, and we can pick out some details. And maybe he likes to chew some sort of leaf or greenery. Maybe he just walks about with a little bit in his mouth, you know, like the bunny equivalent of a cigar or something. I don't know. This is all getting a bit ridiculous already. He's starting to kind of look like a musician rabbit now. I'm getting that sort of like, maybe he's that sort of artsy fart. Maybe he's an artist. There we go. That's what we've been missing all along. Okay, yeah, I think I'm quite happy with that as an idea. I kind of like the look of this little dude. So we're going to shift over to our Art Deco paper, and we can see if we can get a preliminary, I can't even say it today, a preliminary sketch down, and we shall see how it goes. Okay, so just before I start this, I have given my hand a wash because it was getting a bit ridiculous there. One of the things I just want to experiment with, I'm going back over to this paper again, and with 3 layers of Posca, the last layer of which was quite aggressive, you can feel that the paper is starting to bobble a wee bit. So my advice to you is to go gentle with the layers. I just wanted to see how much this is going to erase on this paper, because when it comes to sketching, I do a lot of it. So I just want to take this. This is an electric razor. Well, it's a battery operated razor. And as I suspected, with the amount of carbon, get off my clean sheet of paper. Get off my clean sheet of paper. With the level of carbon that is in these pencils, you're not going to get rid of all of the graphite and carbon. It is going to leave like a kind of dirty mark, which is kind of what I was worried about. So I think that we are going to have to go really gently with this pencil, and I'm not really looking forward to this, to be perfectly honest. I've got a feeling that this might be one of these scrawler challenges that takes more than one sheet of paper. So yeah, I really like this as a pencil, but I think for the purposes of this challenge, it's not, well, it's not something I would pick, certainly. And then we've got some tufts of hair there, we decided. And then these big massive ears that are just going to come right down. Right, okay, I'm a little bit happier with that. Okay, so here comes the interesting part. Now, the thing to remember with stuff like this as well is if you're going to use a fine liner, because of the opacity of the Posca, you want to be doing the Posca first. So that is what we're going to do. So I'm going to try and take a kneaded eraser to this and lighten this up as much as I possibly can. I have no idea how this is going to go. Okay, it can categorically say this is doing nothing. I'm going to smoosh a little bit of this out on a palette. So I'll pick a little bit of this up with the water brush, and I'm going to go a section at a time with the hat here. And just really sort of squish this out a bit. We're back to... Standard gem terminology, squish it out a bit. And I know this paper wasn't really meant to take water, but we seem to be doing rather well here. I'm not going to fault it. Okay, so there we go. We've got a bit of base colour down, which is nice. This could end up being quite a loose drawing, which again is quite unusual for me. I like to sketch loose. I have a lot of very, you know, very sort of what I would call like a wishy-washy sketch. None of the lines are really have been committed to, and I quite enjoy that with a pencil. Not so much with paint and stuff, I'm too uptight. This is just one big experiment, it's great. I've not even started with the character, I've started with his hat. Okay, so I've got a little bit of the pink now as well. Again, I'll just make sure that my brush is clean before I start doing anything crazy. So I wanted to kind of keep this part white, so I'm going to start up here with these tufty bits. I can see myself repainting this, like I really can. This is, it's almost bordering on too experimental, to be perfectly honest. And I never thought that's something that I would say, because I'm not a particularly precious person over stuff like this. Like, this is like a really great way to learn and sort of figure out what you like and what you don't like. And as someone who, let's face it, realistically, I'm not that experienced. I've only been drawing for 2 years and I've been painting even less than that. So this is all a bit of a discovery for me, and I think it's really important to do that. So I want to just try and get that sort of contour down to the eye, because that's quite important, because that gives them their, you know, their bunny shape, as it were. This ear actually has no bottom, like I never actually drew in the end of it. Oh, love it when that happens. Okay, let's go with that anyway. See what it looks the right way round. So, Gem from the future here, yet another audio issue. So the last part of this video is voiceovered. I'm sure you'll enjoy that just as much. So basically what I've done here is I'm just carrying on with this base colour, so still the watered down coral pink, and I'm just working my way around. One of the things I was kind of worried about was the brush strokes showing, but I really didn't have to concern myself with that, because after this, I start to layer up the Posca on top to give that nice sort of furry, fluffy effect that we're going for. So it was just a case of not thinking about it too much and just trying to maintain a reasonable consistency with the dilution of the Posca pen. I decided to stick the eyes in because I always feel like a drawing just looks soulless until the eyes are in, so I thought I would just go for it. I was quite careful here and I was quite conservative until I made sure I had the shape of the eye right. But again, with the Posca pens, I could always expand that out and make them bigger without too much hassle. So I've gone to the Neat Posca pen, so this is back to the 5M and this is the nice aqua colour. And I just wanted to start building up a wee bit of texture on the hat. And this was really, really good fun. And all I'm doing here is just making sure that I've kept a really nice light hand, so not to get that pilling of the paper that we talked about earlier. And I really felt at this point that I was a wee bit more confident in what I was doing, because when it comes to stuff like this, again, I mentioned it earlier, the Posca situation tends to lend itself to more sort of fun, illustrative styles. And I didn't really know how this was going to turn out, you know, trying to sort of cross that border. So on to the coral colour now, and I just absolutely love this colour, and you can see it's standing out really nicely against the more watered down aspect that we started off with. So really from this point for most of the rest of the video, I'm just starting to build up texture but in layers, and again that's to sort of get that fluffy feeling. I also found out it was easier to turn the drawing upside down so that I could work on the other side than just wait for a section to dry. At this point the paper is holding up incredibly well, bearing in mind that there is a layer of water over most of this sheet of paper and there's absolutely zero buckling. So this was pretty straightforward. After that, I just switched over to the lilac, and I'm doing the same thing again. But with the lilac pen here, I'm trying to get some sort of contours into the face so that it looks a little bit more three-dimensional. And by jumping back and forth between the different coloured pens, I was able to achieve that quite well with using that layered look. And obviously that is an advantage that you have with Posca because it is very, very opaque. So here I'm just trying to figure out where the sort of bridge of the nose will go and where the fur is going to come down. And when you're doing stuff like this as well, you need to pay close attention to the direction of the hair and the way that it grows, because that's one thing that helps you with the contouring. I started to layer up on the ears here. I wasn't really sure what was going to look better as a highlight and a low light, so I figured that just by layering them up I would get there eventually. And the reason I'm jumping back and forth is here's just to let little parts dry so that I didn't put my big fat hand in it and smudge it all about. And then gave him his chin and then went over to the other ear. I was very careful putting in the highlights in the eyes because I didn't want my bunny to end up looking cross-eyed. And again, it just helps to kind of like bring it to life. Again though, really simple. If you make a mistake with something like that, you can just paint over it. It's no hassle at all. So I felt the cheeks were a little bit pale here, knowing that I was going to add in more white over the top of the cheeks. So I just darkened down that pink colour before getting in with the fine liner. Had this been a different medium, I probably wouldn't have been as excited about the fine liner as I was here. And I think it's because it's the closest thing I get to a pencil nib, just because it's got a fine tip on it. And I really wanted to use that to sort of enhance my drawing because I felt as if it was going to look a little bit insipid without it. So here's the fun part. I'm back with the white Posca, and you can see there I'm really getting that nice fluffy cheek texture, and this is what I was aiming for all along. And I basically just went to town with this white Posca and built up layers and layers and layers of it, and the paper took 5 or 6 layers on top of each other without any problem at all. So I am absolutely a complete advocate for this paper, and it's got 2 thumbs up. I give it 3 if I had 3 thumbs. So this is starting to look quite nice. And again, just making sure I'm not really pressing down and just using that light flicky motion and thinking about the direction of the fur growth to make sure that it doesn't look too weird. I figured I needed a little bit more definition under his chin there, so that's why I went back in with that coral pen there, just to darken it down so that you could see like a definitive jawline. I was a bit cautious here with the fine liner, and I end up going back to it in just a wee bit. You'll see it in a minute because I felt as if I needed more contrast. So I'm adding his cigar in inverted commas there as well and let that dry. I decided to go and put the whiskers in with the black as well because I felt like the other pens were too thick. I just wasn't going to get that nice fine sort of wispy line. And then went back to adding in a little bit here. I had to be really careful with this black pen because I didn't want to muddy up the nice variety of colours that I already had, but I just wanted to make those contours a little bit more defined and just give them a little bit more shape and depth. And this pen was great for that. The nib width was just the right thickness as well. So finishing off this little frond that he's got poking out his mouth and putting a wee bit of hatching in just to make it a bit more interesting. So I think we can safely say that I've got a rather artistic bunny here. I can't figure out whether he's happy or not. Maybe he's just chilled out. But that is it for this. I would love to hear your thoughts on my bunny and possibly give him a name as well. I think he deserves that at the very least. I'd love to know what you thought of the box and what you've got planned for your Scrawler Challenge or what you've done for your Scrawler Challenge. This bit's funny because I'm obviously gesticulating as I'm talking and I'm not really talking, but I am. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this box. I had good fun. This really pushed me out my comfort zone and I'm so glad I did it. And yeah, I'll definitely try something like this again, maybe with a different colour selection, some of my other Posca pens. That'd be cool. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video and I want you to all stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you back in the cave on Sunday for another video. So have a good day everyone and bye for now.